So for this video, we're going to be going over the reflective learning strategies presented in Module 1 of your textbook. We're going over this first because I feel that the information presented here will be useful for you, not just in my classroom, but in every class you take this semester and from then on throughout college. So first off, what exactly is reflective learning? According to your textbook, there are two ways that the brain processes information. One way is through passive, non-engaged processing. Think of it as you're sitting in class, listening to a teacher give a lecture for 50 minutes. Not note-taking, not really asking any questions, just sitting there listening. This is experiential. You're not engaged in learning what's going on. You're just there hoping to soak up information. Sure, after class you might have retained something, but it's not going to be as much as if you participated in reflective processing. Reflective processing is engaging, it's asking questions, it's taking notes, it's trying to learn what is going on in the class, trying to understand what the teacher is explaining to you. Now your book outlines three different strategies. There's the strategy for reading, note-taking, and studying. We're going to begin with reflective reading. So one strategy used for reflective reading is the reflective SQ4R method. This method is used sort of, not so much that you're just reading a book, but you're actively engaged in what's going on in the book. You're asking yourself questions, you're trying to answer questions. It's processing the information. So the first part, the S, is survey. And if you open your textbook, we're going to use an example, Module 9. Before you actually begin reading the module, open your textbook and go to the table of contents and take a look at whichever module you're doing. In this case, it's Module 9. Module 9, take a look at the name of the chapter, which is Brain and Behavior, Hemispheres and Lobes of the Cerebral Cortex. This gives you a basic understanding of what you're going to be going over. We're going to be learning about the cerebral cortex and the hemispheres. And then take a look at all the little headings, such as the cerebral cortex, lobes of the cerebral cortex. This will give you the overall view of what you're going to be learning and what we're going over. And that leads you to the Q in the SQ4R method, which is question. Now at the beginning of every section of the module, you have survey questions, and this is just an easy way to start with your asking questions. So before you begin reading, write down the questions, and these are the questions you're going to try and answer as you read the section. The first R in the 4R part is read. Go through, read the section, and instead of just reading the section, try to absorb what you're reading. Use what you're reading to answer the question you have. Such as, one of the questions is, what is the cerebral cortex? So as you're reading, you're looking for the answer to, what is the cerebral cortex? The second R is recite. After you've written down your answer, and after you've read the section, go back, reread your answer again. Repetition is going to help you remember what you've read. It's going to help you absorb the information better. Or if you don't quite understand what you wrote down, you can rewrite it. The third R is reflect. This is taking what you read and making it relative to what you are doing. For example, say you're reading about Phineas Gage. Phineas Gage was a man who was an interesting case study because he had an iron rod shoot through his head from gunpowder and it caused brain damage. He lived, but afterwards his whole demeanor and personality changed. Now say for example you're into sports. You might know some things about concussions in football players. So you could find a way to associate Phineas Gage, who had a brain injury, with, say, a sports player who similarly had a brain injury and their brain chemistry changed due to the injury. It doesn't have to be sports, it can be whatever you're interested in. If it's a picture, if it's a certain way you write things down, make it so you understand the information. Make it so the information is relative to what you like, what you do, what you can understand. And the last one is review. After you've finished reading the module, the entire thing, go back over, look at what you've written. If you have any further questions, hold on to those questions and you can bring them into class either the next day or simply bring them up to me and I'll try and answer them for you. Alright, the second part is reflective note-taking, which also has its nifty little anagram. It's called the LISAN, L-I-S-A-N, which sounds like listen. Now for effective note-taking in class, the first thing you want to do is the L is lead, don't follow. Don't wait until you come to class to crack open your textbook and see what module we're on. Go ahead and either read it the night before or a couple days before, sort of you get an idea of what we're going over. And that way, if you have any questions, you can bring them into class the next day. The second one is ideas. For ideas, basically if you look over the title of the chapter, it's basically the idea of what we're going over. Or if you have any questions about the ideas, like what supports this main idea, such as when we go over different branches of psychology, well, okay, what exactly supports the idea of behaviorism versus structuralism, things like that. Second one is S, signal words. This is how you know when something important is about to be said. So for example, if I was going to say, we're studying the 4 lobes of the brain. Pay attention because I said the 4 lobes of the brain, these are the 4 lobes. That's where you're going to pay attention so you know what to write down, the 4 lobes of the brain. Or such as, here's the main idea, that's the main idea, this idea is supported by, things like that. You'll understand as it goes on exactly what you should be taking notes over. And the A is actively listen. This is trying